It is my great honor to host this session today. We have an hour and 30 minutes, of which we already used a little bit. So we have a full program today, so I propose to start. There's many people following us online. Welcome as well. I will start with giving the floor to, before I welcome the speakers, which I will do my speech, I will give the floor first to you, Benoit. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous.
Good morning to you all. Thank you, Jessica, for giving me the floor, and thank you for organising this intergroup meeting. We are delighted to work with such proactive MEPs. It is vital to have an intergroup championing sustainable breeding within the European Parliament. There is endless subject of debate. Yeah, sorry, can everyone hear the English booth? Channel 2?
It seems
there is no. We cannot choose languages at all at the screen. It's not. It seems as it has not started.
With English?
I can choose between the languages. You see?
No, the other. It's okay.
It's working.
But you can change the place, perhaps. I don't know.
yeah, mine is working.
Okay.
Take mine.
Yes?
There you go.
That's perfect.
Ok. Sorry pour le petit problème.
I do apologise for that technical hiccup. Europe plays a key role in supplying animal genetics at global level. The European Union is a global leader when it comes to selection and genomic research, exporting genetic material to improve health, efficiency and sustainability of livestock breeding around the world. Genetics and sexing are key levers to ensure that we have effective, lasting and profitable livestock breeding. Modern genetics makes it possible to produce better with fewer inputs. We select more effective animals for food. They are better adapted to their environment, more robust, and that reduces the emissions per kilo of protein produced. Biological efficiency helps protect the environment. Sexing is a tool to allow efficiency. We can adapt production within the sector, reduce waste of resources, and better plan livestock. Fewer emissions, it's really common sense. Fewer animals that cannot be effectively used. But allow me to sound an alarm bell. We see non-scientific ideological positions in Europe stigmatizing some practices. The animal welfare principles are important and food security is important. And we have to look at the breeds we select, such as the Piemontese. We cannot stigmatise breeds, and that would be a real mistake. Take the example of the Blanc Bleu Belge. It is one of the most efficient breeds we have in terms of food production and meat production. Look at the environmental issues at stake. We have demographic growth. The global population will reach 9.7 billion by 2050. In other words, 2 billion extra mouths to feed. According to the FAO, that will lead to 20% increase in demand for meat. Against this backdrop, beef production, which is often criticised for its environmental impact, must adapt its production system to become more effective. So the Bleu Blanc Vert project is part of this. We need to select more efficient animals that produce fewer greenhouse gases. We need to look at crossbreeding and those options. This type of selection linked to fodder with a low environmental impact would enable the sector to reach the Green Deal targets and consolidate the lasting nature of the sector. The Blanc Bleu is being used, and so the Blanc Bleu breed is a good blend of animal protein and a good balance with the amount of greenhouse gases produced. In other words, more high quality nutritional protein per kilo of methane emitted. That is precisely the type of indicator we need to be looking at when talking about sustainability. Sustainability cannot be decreed. We need to measure it. It cannot be forced through against the wishes of farmers, but by working with farmers. Sexing and innovative projects are often stigmatized, and we cannot stigmatize breeds. We need to work together to move towards scientific-based practices for the future. Thank you.
Juste un petit mot. Je voudrais saluer.
Allow me to welcome all the farmers in Brussels today, marching to defend our profession, food sufficiency and autonomy in Europe, and a lasting and efficient sector. Thank you.
Very much, Benoit. Alexander, I understood you wanted to do the wrap-up, but if that's not the case, then I also would like to give you the word. But I see some of our colleagues have joined us also, so we have some MEPs in the house. So thank you, Valerie, Stefan, Celine, Nina, for being here with us. And, well, Alexander, take it away.
Very much, and also a very warm welcome, a very important day for our farmers today in Brussels. So I think they really show up the problems they exist, but also we don't have to show the problems, we also have solutions, and breeding is one part of this solution. Benoit, you mentioned a lot of points when it comes to reducing emissions, when it comes to more efficiency. Breeding is one of the key elements, and I think we clearly have to show that breeding is nothing bad. It's just something, it's helpful for society, it's helpful for farmers, and it's also helpful for animals. And that's something we really have to explain, the positive effects of breeding. And if you listen to some other colleagues, it seems like it's the worst happening ever, but even as more data as we can collect from our animals, as more efficient breeding can be. So a lot of things ahead of us. I think also something where more cooperation between countries, breeding associations and so on is needed, especially when it comes to new diseases and so on. I think there is a lot of potential ahead of this. So a very interesting topic, and I'm really looking forward for the expertise we will get today.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Well, then it is my great honor and pleasure to welcome our distinguished speakers. Today, as you've heard, we will talk about genetic selection and the importance of it for the EU food sovereignty. But let me share you some personal engagement with this topic, because of course there's a reason why I'm so passionate about this. Some 20 years ago, I was studying animal science in Wageningen University, and we were obliged to do an internship abroad. And as it goes in your 20s, at least for me, I didn't have a clear path for myself, what I wanted to do. So I didn't really understand what I was going to do after my studies, after obtaining my master's. But I had to go abroad. So I told my professor, okay, I want to work with cows, and it has to be a place warm. That was my two conditions, somewhere warm, cows. He looked me up and he sized me up a bit, and he said, I have something for you. And he said, I'm sure you will like it. But little did I know, I was about to enter the lab of one of the most renowned scientists in bovine reproductive physiology, Dr. Bill Thatcher, founding father of timed artificial insemination. I had no clue. I just thought, I'm going to Florida. Yeah. He didn't give me an easy time. Long days and nights working lab shifts and prac checks on the farm, in the surrounding dairies in the area. But that's where I found my passion. Reproductive physiology, whether that's human or animal, is the most fascinating area of research, as it reveals bit by bit the secret of life. So this became a passion ever since. I continued and obtained a PhD in porcine physiology and started to work at a company that invented the straws to freeze bull semen in. This technology allowed us to transport premium genetics over great distances and preserve it over time. It was a European invention. Hear it very well. It was a European invention to freeze, the straws to freeze bull semen in. It has boosted genetic selection of dairy herds worldwide due to the use of elite bulls, increased milk production, and allowed developing countries to obtain better genetics to feed their children with. And we are very lucky to have with us online today Dr. Luca Fontanesi from the University of Bologna, who will tell us more about how breeding strategies work. And Dr. Raffaella Finocchiaro, researcher at the Italian Holstein Association and head of Research and Development Office of the ANAFIBJ. That is a nice abbreviation. You can tell us what it stands for, please. Who will share her experience working with farmers to have them benefit most from genetic advances. Now, we're at a new crossroad for genetic selection with the sexing of semen to tilt the balance from 50-50 male versus female to over 90% female calves. But why do we need this, you might think? Well, cows need to gestate a calf regularly to maintain a good milk yield. And this is almost 100% achieved through artificial insemination. No insemination, no milk. But the male calves have little to no value for milk production. As a result, the surplus male calves are destined to the veal industry or, in absence of a value market chain, euthanized on farm. And recent publications show that around 15% of the bull calves are killed on farm within a few days of age, due to the lack of viable market options for high-yielding dairy breeds, or for lack of options to put them in veal production, leading to a low economic value for the male calf. And in this context, I would like to welcome Dr. Saskia Meijer, Head of Research and Genetic Solutions Development at Synetics, as she will talk about the role of animal genetics in health and welfare and sustainability. And while the EU has detailed minimum standards for the protection of calves regarding housing, feeding and care, there's no regulation about on-farm euthanasia of male surplus calves. Both from an economic standpoint and from the animal welfare, the killing of the surplus male calves is a very undesirable situation. Using beef sires to serve the dairy herd is not an option for most farmers, as they also want to reproduce their replacement heifers. So the best solution here is to use sexed semen. Nowadays, between 20 to 25% of the inseminations are performed with sexed semen. And the expectation is that this will keep growing despite the higher cost for a dose of sexed semen compared to non-sexed semen. However, for semen sexing, Europe is completely dependent on American technologies. In the current tense geopolitical landscape, where the transatlantic relationship has chilled quite a bit, to say the least, it becomes more and more clear that relying on the USA alone for our genetic and technological supply chain in livestock management is not to be preferred. So therefore, I welcome very much that we have in our middle one of the founders of a European-based company in semen sexing, Dr. Eric Smit, who will tell us more about the relevance of European-based, but above all, European-owned technology for genetic selection. I'm looking forward to all your contributions and, of course, the questions and following debate. And let's get started. So, first speaker for us is Dr. Luca Fontanesi, who is with us online. And we see the presentation already. I'm not Fontanesi.
Yes.
If that's going to work. We are going to see you too.
Okay, good.
The floor is all yours.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to give this introductory perspective. I will try to give a scientific perspective on how animal breeding strategies work and defining breeding objectives. Next. Thank you. Next slide.
Yes, now we can also see you. We don't see the slides anymore, but we see you.
Okay, good. Okay, so I come from the University of Bologna. I'm a full professor of livestock systems and animal breeding genetics. For me, it's quite challenging to give a scientific perspective on animal breeding in 10 minutes. Next slide, thank you. Okay, seems it's coming.
We're not, unfortunately, we're not seeing any movement of the slides. It is working. Okay, no, oh yeah.
Go back one. Okay. First of all, we need to have an overall picture how animal production systems works. Animal production system is essential element of the agricultural production system in Europe, not only in Europe, globally speaking. If you disrupt the system, taking away, for example, livestock production into this circular bioeconomy overview, of course, you disrupt the whole system. The animal is actually a system itself. It works around several other elements. It is part of the natural resources, climate and biodiversity, is relevant in terms of social perspective. Animal health and welfare are really relevant. It is essential element for food and nutrition security and for the diversity of the production system and securing economic growth to the agricultural system and in Europe. Animal genetics and breeding is part of the animal system. Next. First of all, we need to go and try to understand what is sustainable production in terms of livestock production. We have 4 levers here, but the founding levers is animal breeding and genetics. Of course, just to give an example, you cannot win a Formula 1 race if you drive a car with the engine of a panda car, of course. And our races are the challenges that we need to face. We don't just select for increasing growth rate, but we are selecting to face climate challenges. We want to reduce emissions. We need to adapt the animals. We need to increase resilience, robustness, improve reproduction strategies, longevities, and animal welfare. After you have done everything, focus on this animal breeding, you can move to nutrition and feeding. Nutrition and feeding is another essential element of the sustainability. We can do precision nutrition. We can use novel resources, feed resources, improve microbiome optimization, and we can, doing that, mitigate and also reduce emissions. Again, another element, animal health and welfare, based on what we can develop in animal breeding. We can prevent disease. We can also do more precisely health intervention, vaccination, and so on. We can also monitor alternatives to develop antimicrobials. Animal breeding and genetics needs also technologies, but precision livestock farming needs also technologies and data. We want to obtain real-time data from animals using sensors, networks, performing, and we can develop digital twins using artificial intelligence to support our decision. Next. Thank you. So animal breeding is, of course, a part of the system. It takes time to evolve animal population. We can in some improve the animals, the animal populations, but it is an investment in terms of long perspective, depending on the interval generation of the animals. We need phenotypes. We need to collect the data on the animals to be measured. So in this way, we are focusing on the breeding objectives. So we need to collect a lot of data. We need to elaborate the data. Next. So animal breeding relies on mathematics applied to biology, where this is a very basic, simple equation on which we are working with. Phenotype equal to genotype plus environment. Phenotype means what an animal looks like, how the animals performs, how they produce, the health of the animals, and so on. The genes are the complete genomic content of the animals. Environmental factors are those that modify the interaction between with the genotype. Animal qualities are the traits that we measure, the phenotypes, that are then translated in breeding values for a number of interesting and desirable traits. Next. How everything works. We have a distribution of the animal population. This is just a normal distribution of the performance of the animals. And we select the blue part of the animals, and based on the animals that are selected, identified as superiors in some way for some traits that are our objectives, we move forward the whole population, and we create the delta G, the genetic progress in the population. Next slide. So we come from a simple definition of animal breeding, an ensemble of knowledge, because we need to put together mathematics, biology, and many technologies, because we need to record the animals, genotype animals, and so on. So in the end, we can also define the animal breeding and genetics as the engine of the animal production sector. Actually, it is the green engine, and I tell you why later. Next. Well, we are developing many different objectives, and the performance of this engine have been changed over time. At the beginning of the 1970s, more or less, we had just two main objectives, production and some other traits. Now we have come a long way. We have modified our engine in some way. We have included a catalytic converter. We have added many additional developments in this engine. And now we are focusing on improved animal health and welfare, better production and quality of the product, better use of resources, reduction of environmental impact, ensuring food security, and keeping an eye on genetic diversity. Next. So the performance are in some way cumulative, because what we have done remain, and permanent, and we grow over what we have done. And of course, what I've done now, it cannot be lost, so it is an improvement at a very low cost. Next. Just a few examples of the performance of this engine. In terms of environmental benefit and breeding, methane emission reduced by 1% annually. Nitrogen excretion is cut by about 3.5% every 5 years. So we are also impacting in terms of use of less feed compared to 30 years ago. We have decreased the feed use to grow the animals of 30%. And we have also impact in terms of social impact in our farmer community. We are focusing on the diversity of the production system. That is the added value of the European Union. And also we are enhancing animal health and welfare, increasing also the resistance to disease, and reducing antibiotic inclusion in our system. Next. So actually, if we want to understand and improve again this engine, we need to fuel this engine with other innovations, because we need to come with a new engine to face new challenges. So we need to include innovation in the European animal breeding, and supporting also farmers. Sustainability is not is a good coincidence today that the farmers are demonstrating in Brussels. We need to give some answer, and the research is needed there. So we need to have supported European Union research and innovation in this system. We have, as a Fabre TP, we have also identified 4 key pillars that are aligned with the challenges that we are facing: resilient competitiveness, green transition, social acceptance, awareness, knowledge and innovation. Next. So in conclusion, animal breeding and reproduction is the green engine of the production system, the agricultural production system. It is essential for the sustainability of the European Union agriculture. We actually need, as scientists, to be supported, because we need to increase the performance again of this engine. And there is a declining trend in European Union support in this system. This trend should be reversed. We are ready to contribute with practical proposals to put animal breeding and reproduction at the core of the European Union innovation investments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. I would like to collect all the questions in the end, and if that's okay with you, Dr. Fontanesi. So we continue with the next speaker, Dr. Raffaella Finocchiaro. Could you please take the floor?
Yes, thank you very much. So we talk. The name of the association is ANAFI-BJ, which means Italian is the National Association for the Holstein Friesian, for the Brown Swiss and the Jersey. We historically started with Holstein, but then we added the other breed, and we managed the herd books of these breeds. So first of all, thank you for the invitation. I think it's very important. And then the topic of my talk, I think we follow what Dr. Fontanesi has already talked about. And then we start with the farmer's needs. And then, has been talked a lot here already at the beginning of this event, what is happening in Brussels today. But then as a breeding organization, but in general, all breeding organization, what they put in the middle is the farmer's needs. So at the middle of everything, there is the farm, and then all around is the animals, so the sustainability of the animals, the farm owners and everything that happens there, and everything that is happening also today, and to the environmental impact that has been talking today, what we can talk economically, of course, but then what we can say is everything sustainability. So, and then our aim is to make a better production for farmers, reduce health problems, reduce risk, get fair prices, adopt modern sustainable practices. So this is a bit what our work is about. And then if we connect breeding companies and farmers, so we can say there is an input and there is an output. The input is everything that comes from genetics, as we have seen in the previous presentation, phenotype and genomics. And then we can also translate this when we talk about genetics, we talk about pedigree and DNA, and then phenotype is all that is collected in a farm. So that is very important. This is data that are coming from farm, and then we will see in the next presentation is that we started with few traits, and then now today we have enormous amount of data, and then technology and tools that comes with genomics. So genomics have brought us a big amount of things. And this is all in the farm. So what we can collect in the farm. In the middle is the selection strategy that comes from the breeding company, from the scientific world that help us to produce what we have today. And then we have the output. The output is the production, the efficiency of the farmers, the welfare, and then how the farmers can use this is thanks to tools that can be developed for farmers, then they have to be user-friendly. And here we can say that is the connection between breeding companies and farmers. Farmers are in the middle of everything, I would say. Modern animal breeding came, we have seen in the presentation of Luca Fontanesi, that there is an evolution. We started in the 70s and the 80s where we had only few traits, and then we arrived to breeding today, between the 2000 and today, everything has started, has increased, and then production is also part, but there are other traits like health, welfare, whatever, it's important. Economic is important, security for the farmers, everything is important. So, and then if we put this in a graph where we have the years in the x-axis and the actors in the y-axis, so we can say in the 70s the actors were only the producers, and what we were thinking about was milk, fat, protein, eggs, meat. What was production? And then we moved on the 90s, and then the actors are producers and animals. So apart from the production, we started to think about functionality, longevity, fertility, other health like somatic cell count. All this was important, but these were needs that were coming from also the request of the farmers. And then we arrived to 2010, and then we had also consumers, the importance of consumers. So we had also other traits we have been talking today: emissions, efficiency, welfare, economics, and then we have nowadays we have also the society. Society is very important because we have to listen what is happening all around us. So there is water, air, everything is the global world is important. But if there is an evolution on breeding objectives, there is also an evolution on livestock system. So we started, here we have an example of the cattle. We started with a small mechanization till arriving in 2030 or nowadays to have an holistic vision of what is the farming. So all the sensors that has been said, everything that can be collected, and we go back at the beginning of presentation, everything is collected in the farm. So everything, there is a treasure that comes from the farm. And there is a point there, we have big data. So we have to be capable to manage big data. It's not easy to manage all this data, so we need capacities, we need computer science, we need everything that can bring us to an evolution of breeding objectives. So this is the evolution. So when we talk about, I'm talking about cattle, but then this can be everywhere. There is a world breeding goal evolution that we had seen in the steps that I've seen, but then each country, and here is represented by the flags, each countries, and this is in the 90s, had a breeding goal that we can summarize in three main groups, which is production, functionality, and conformation. And as it is visible in the 90s, the main trait was production, as we already had said in the previous slides. But there was already some countries that was thinking, well, maybe we should think about something. And these were mainly, at that time, were the Scandinavian countries that were thinking, there is something that we have to do. But then we arrive today, and we see a totally different figures. All countries that are working in a breeding goal, they totally change the breeding objectives because, and as we can see, functionality is the first part, is very important trait. And then there's been added also important trait like feed efficiency in the breeding objectives, but also health traits like can be food health. So it's important. And all these things are being included in the breeding objectives, but as Luca had said in the previous talk, all this takes time to collect data, but takes time also to see the genetic progress. It's not 1, 2, 3, the genetic progress will arrive. It takes at least 10 years before a decision taken today, it will have a solution in not nowadays, immediately. So, and then a big progress has been made since fertility and longevity have been included in the genetic progress, and this happens in cattle, in pigs, in poultry, in everything. So this is very important. This is an example that is happening in the Italian Holstein population, and then what we can see is that the genetic trend for health traits, for longevity and fertility, has increased since this trait has been included in the breeding objectives. This means that when a trait starts to be collected and then becomes a breeding value, if this is not included in the breeding objectives, there's not going to be a progress. So it needs to be included, and again, it takes time. As you can see from the trend, it takes time to improve and to have a better progress. Sorry. Oh, next slide is not... Okay, and then we were talking about cattle, but then there are different species, similar breeding objectives. So we have here the example of poultry, pigs, and aquaculture. So poultry, the breeding objectives that are thinking about is also feed efficiency, heat tolerance, immunity. But then these words we can also find in pigs or in aquaculture. So it's important. So it's a common point of view for every species that is taken into consideration. And then breeding services for farmers, we can say that there are three pillars. In one side, there is the genetic progress, breeding values developed and implemented. So once it is implemented, there is a significant improvement. But without farmers, there is no genetic progress, because we can include everything in our breeding objectives. But then if farmers are not using, there is nothing that is going to be improved. And then, as I said at the beginning of my presentation, what is important is to take the selection decision, there is tools that farmers can use, that they have to be user-friendly, because we have to think that farmers, they have to use and they have the capacity to use this thing. Otherwise, everything is useless. And then we go to, I'm arriving to the end. So this is two examples of things that we apply for our farmers. So there are these models. One is, there are mating plants that farmers can use, and then they can use directly by the smartphone, because farmers are very smart, so they can use their smartphone, and then they can make decision. And then there is this application that we call Easy App, so which is easy calving, and farmers can make decision on replacement. So to decide, based on what they have in their farm, to decide if they want to use a sex semen, if they don't want to use it, which kind of semen they want to use, if they want to do beef on dairy, and then we will listen something else in the following presentations. And then we also spoke about global warming potential, and then we included a module for farmers that they can investigate what is their environmental impact in their farms. So how much chemicals they are using, whatever, and which is their environmental impact. So they can make decision and decide how to improve everything. And then last, that's something that EFAB has developed, is the code of EFABAR, so that a farmer and the company can see using our breeding objectives if we are sustainable, responsible, and balanced in all these things. So there is the code of EFABAR, and what we did, it is an update of the code of EFABAR. We said, okay, we have the code of EFABAR, we applied this, but what if a farmer wants also a certificate that is doing good, is performing in a nice way? So we decided we are going to apply the code of EFABAR to the farmer that decides I want this certificate. So we tested this, and the farmers are using this, so it's important that they can test, I'm sustainable, I'm doing good, and all this. So coming to the conclusion, we can say that genetic improvement has been very successful for impacting positively profitability, health, welfare, but we can say there are many other things that economically, also farmers economically have improved if they follow certain part. And then again, genomic selection, I didn't speak very much about this, but genomic selection is very important because allows accurate genetic selection and also progress in genetic progress. So thank you. With this, I would like to thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, no, it's good. Our next speaker is Dr. Saskia Meijer, Head of Research and Genetic Solutions Development at Synetics. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation of today. I would like to speak about animal genetics and we use it as a tool to improve animal health and welfare and the sustainability. And we got some nice introduction by Rafaela and Luca already, so you are all educated now how genetics and breeding works, so I can directly go more in details. Before, I would like to mention I'm a member, or I work for a cooperative, Synetics, which is a French-German cooperative, and we represent 35,000 farmers, beef, cattle and dairy farmers that are our bosses. They lead our Breeders Association, and I'm here for them today. And what we see in the picture is two young farmers that are having a look on their herd. And since breeding is thinking in generations, not only in the generation of the cow population, but also in the farmers population, we always need to think about, okay, why do young people decide today to become a farmer in Europe? What are the arguments? And an argument could be that it's nice to work with livestock, with cattle explicitly, to produce nutrition for the whole population, to have really a sense in their work that they do every day. And the nice thing is to be free of your work, and you can work on healthy animals. This is what all farmers want to do in the poultry sector, in the pig sector, and in the dairy cattle or beef cattle sector. And it's nice to have healthy animals, but from time to time, they can become sick. Then you have some work to do. You have to take care of them. You want that they become healthy again, because they should produce, but because animal welfare is in the heart of the farmers, a really important point. And we can help them to have more healthy animals in their barn by using selection tools that are modern and that use genomic information today. And that the concept that was explained by the presenters before works can be shown in real data. Next slide, please. It's not moving. Yes, so this is an example how we can reduce with genetics the healthy cow. So the mastitis is a production disease of dairy cows, obviously. And what you can see here, that we have the genetic level of the sire, where we know the genetic value for mastitis resistance for, and you see then the percentage, how frequently his offspring gets a mastitis infection. And what you see, if the genetic level of the bull, that is the father of the cow, is low, in the lower 25% of the population, then you see we have more than 20% of mastitis infection in the offspring. You see the average percent between 25 and 75% of the bulls with an average genetic level in mastitis resistancy produce offspring that has less than 15% mastitis infection. But what you see is the upper 25% of bulls with a genetic value for mastitis resistance producing cows that have less than 10% of mastitis infection during their productive life, which is really, really good, because it's good for the health of the cow, and it leads to that we have to treat our cows less with antibiotics, because especially mastitis is a disease. If we want to cure it, we often have to use antibiotics to help the animals suffer less and to become healthy again. And what you see here is data from Scandinavia, from Viking Genetics, and you see on the left side the amount of, or the percentage of antibiotics that has been used or necessary for mastitis treatments in 2008. But you see, on the other hand, 10 years later, the same kind of cows in the third lactation used half of the antibiotic treatments that was necessary 10 years ago. And this is what really counts, that we effectively see that not only the treatment of the cow works, but explicitly that we can reduce it using genomic selection. And you see 4.3 tons of antibiotics could be reduced due to this genetic gain that we could achieve in the resistancy of mastitis. The discarded milk is due to, during a treatment of a cow, we cannot use the milk that she's producing, so we have to discard it. So we have a huge milk loss. And we would like to drink the milk or to produce cheese or butter with this in the meantime, but we can't. So this is also better if we have less treatment times. And the cow has also a permanent milk loss. When she's having a mastitis, she's suffering at that time, but also when she has recovered, she will never come up to the level that she would have without the mastitis infection. And this means we have also a milk loss when the cow has a mastitis infection, but if we could avoid the mastitis infection, then the lactation curve stays on a higher level. This was one example, but if we have a look which are the main culling reasons in dairy cattle, for example, then we also come to lameness, because today the cows have to walk a lot. They are not tied anymore in their barns. They have to go to the pasture, they have to walk within the barn to grab their feed, to go to the milking parlor, and they need to walk. And this means a cow needs to be free of any lameness, and we have differentiation between infectious and non-infectious reasons for lameness or diseases on the claws. And we can select also here for a better resistancy against infectious diseases in the claws, which will lead to that we don't cull cows earlier than necessary, because they are still able to move, they have less claw lesions, and are really healthy, and this is also better for the animal health and the welfare. I will speak now on the example of longevity, because you are sometimes asking, why is your average cow population in the barn not around 15 or 20 years old? You might ask this question, but the answer is easy. First, a cow that is going to the slaughterhouse is also serving as food or nutrition for the population, so this means she still has a sense even if she goes for slaughter. But the second reason is also we have a constant replacement of our cows, because we said the necessity of giving milk is having a calf and induce a gestation, and therefore then a lactation, and therefore we still have some offspring that wants to enter the barn and becomes a cow again, and therefore older cows need to make also some place, because the barn is not growing all the time, it stays constant on the places that they have in the barn. And therefore, I wanted to explain a little bit why we claim we have genetic progress also in longevity, but why you sometimes doesn't see this in the phenotypic expression of the cows, meaning why we sometimes have probably a negative trend. And this is, let's say, easy to explain on some examples. Here you see in the green bars that we have a constant positive trend, as Raffaela also mentioned, in the longevity in our population. But sometimes, phenotypically, you will see we have negative trends compared to the year before. And this can be a reason because of milk price crisis, for example. If there's farmers cannot run their barns economically, then sometimes they decide to close, and then the cows need to be culled and leave earlier than they would normally do. So this is a clear reason why sometimes this big economic crisis have also impact on what we see phenotypically. And a second important reason, especially when you are having ruminants and cows that need a lot of food, is when you have a bad harvest. You can't feed the amount of cattle that you have in your barn, so you need to reduce and select wisely which cows you will milk, and you will select the ones that are most efficient and most healthy. So this was a good example to explain the difference between genetic trend and phenotypic trend on. But we have also other advantages that we have since we use genomic information mainly, but also before. Because we already told that breeding is based on huge data. We need to treat big data sets, and we have, the herd book associations, a lot of data also from the past decades. Meaning we have, for example, all the pedigree information of our animals, and this is used to mate them. And in purebred population, it's sometimes a little bit more difficult, but you will mate them without any relatedness, because relatedness can lead to once a genetic defect, for example, it is recessive, but if you mate relatives again, then it could show up. And therefore, we use all the data we generate on the pedigree information and on the genomic information to maintain the genetic diversity of our populations. And this works quite well, because we do individual matings by each cow, and we see which is the best mating sire for her that is not related to her, but is still giving the next generation the best genetics to produce efficiently. Yeah, we already touched this subject here, that farmers decide wisely which animals they mate. They decide based on what they want to achieve in their farm and what they want to improve, also the females that they want to keep and which should be mated and produce the next generation of dairy cows on the farm. And therefore, they can decide which genetics they want to use, but also directly decide which product in terms of semen they want to use. We were introduced that we have developed the artificial insemination and frozen semen for the bovine sector, but we can also inseminate for sure pigs. And we can in mammals really well differentiate the sex of the semen that we use by sorting it, which will be explained in the next talk. And therefore we can directly produce only females or mainly females for the dairy sector, but also for crossbreeding, and for the beef cattle sector we can produce males. So, and this leads to that we don't have the issue anymore with the surplus male calves that sometimes don't have a huge value directly for the chain. But yeah, this can be already decided by the farmer by the selection of the semen. And you see here as an example a crossbred calves, which will enter the fattening station and will be really efficient compared to a purebred dairy calf, because it increases easier daily gain, it converts the food easier because it's better selected for a good food conversion. Yes, and coming back to the question in the beginning, why should young farmers decide to become farmers in Europe today? And you see, we have to manage different farming conditions. This is a typical north-western and German example here, but for sure, you know, farms in Austria, for example, will look quite different to this. Nevertheless, in the end, they want a cow in their barn that is producing efficiently and healthy all the time for earning money with them. And what is the future of the cattle breeding in Europe? And we think we have here 4 pillars regarding the replacement planning. The first one is coming. The strategic use of the resources. As I said, we can decide by the farm what breeding goal I want to follow. We have global indexes based on each country, but for sure the farmer itself can decide if I want to improve the udder health, the lameness, for example, in the barn, if I want to increase the productivity or the fertility. And then they can set the number of replacement heifers that they need, and only mate the heifers or cows that should be used for the replacement of the herd to mate them in purebred. They can select more intense because they know not only the genetic level of the bulls today, but also of the females, and they can select the females that should be mated for pure breeding. And then we have the sustainability, that the bottom line genetic level cows that should stay in the barn and still produce milk but should not be used for replacement can be mated by a beef bull. And this is called beef and dairy, that we have more sustainable and more efficient fattening animals. The productivity is the 4th pillar, and we can mate our purebred dairy heifers with purebred genetics that is really efficient and is fulfilling all the demands. And we can also use sex semen to decide if we would like to have a male or a female calf. And this is what the next speaker will explain, how this works and how we can use this for the efficient replacement planning in European farms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the final speaker for today, Dr. Eric Smit.
Well, thank you, Dr. Van Leeuwen. I'm going to talk to you about artificial insemination and precision breeding and farming. So we'll talk about a tool that allows the implementation of all the work that has been done by my colleagues here present with genetic selection. And mastering semen sexing technology is essential to secure EU farmer resilience, EU autonomy, and sustainability. As was discussed by Saskia earlier, the sustainable model requires that you avoid the birth of low-value male dairy calves, and that you tend to create a dual-purpose herd. And this dual-purpose herd is composed of elite genetics for milk production, but also high-quality beef for food security. And as you see in the graph below, you want to favor high-value females that produce milk. You want to use some part of the dairy herd to produce a beef, what we call beef on dairy, so cross your dairy cows with beef bulls to produce calves that will be valued in the beef production chain, and you want to avoid as much as possible the surplus male dairy calves that are sometimes a non-value on dairy herds and can also pose a animal welfare issue because sometimes, as Jessica van Leeuwen mentioned, they are euthanized. So the technology and the knowledge of physiology of breeding has evolved tremendously in the past 40, 50 years. And we've seen the advent of technologies that allow the selection of sperm cells. You can select and inseminate only with sperm cells that will contain the Y chromosome, so that will produce male calves, or you can inseminate with sperm cells that contain only the X chromosomes and will produce female calves. So you have an evolution from the 50-50% sex ratio, which is inherent to conventional artificial insemination, to a skewed sex ratio with 90% of females, which are high value for the dairy herd sector. And the technology is so precise today that you reduce the number of male calves to 10% and sometimes less. This is based on the measurement of DNA in the sperm cells. So you have technology that allows the measurement of the DNA in the sperm cells and allow you to select the sperm cells that contain only the right amount of DNA. Hence, you go to precision farming, and that's the result of this tool, semen sexing, that allows to favor the elite replacement females that you will use in your cow, in your herd to produce milk, but also you produce high value beef genetics using, for instance, the Belgian Blue breed, and that's a crossbred that's used very often. You would use Belgian Blue on Holstein cows, and you will have very high value beef products that the dairy farmer can use to increase his profitability, but also, as we will see in the next slide, will help to have a very sustainable and competitive farming. This semen sexing tool will help reduce emission, so you have fewer replacement animals to produce milk with a low carbon footprint. That also favors food security, because with a low number of animals, you can be self-sufficient in animal production for Europe. And finally, you have a very good resource efficiency use, as you will need less feed and water for raising those animals. Semen sexing is a key tool in the farmer toolkit today to be sustainable and competitive. For the semen technology to remain performant, this needs EU investment, engagement, and that's also a matter of EU sovereignty, as has been mentioned before. And by favoring the use of semen sexing and helping developing semen sexing in Europe, we will foster the competitiveness of EU breeders, farmers, and improve sustainability and food autonomy, and also, very importantly, improve animal welfare. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then to conclude, we have with us Brigitte Maison from DG Agri that will shed a light on what the Commission's standpoint is in this topic. Ms. Maison, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Wonderful. Welcome. I heard you were also speaking in the Animal Welfare Intergroup, and now you're in the Sustainable Livestock Intergroup. So busy morning for you. Thank you for making the time to be with us. And floor is all yours.
Thank you. I mainly listen to you, in fact, in the EP Intergroup on animal welfare, and I had a very short possibility to talk about what the Commission has in stake for livestock, on livestock in the Commission, and also make a specific, just very short focus on breeding. I have the impression that there is a problem for presenting my PowerPoint, but no issue. I will say that orally. So what we are doing at Commission level on livestock started with the vision for agriculture and food, and you know that there are 4 big axes in that vision. Make farming attractive again, so a focus on the new generation. Make agriculture competitive at global level and resilient to crises. Make farming future-proof, another word for sustainability in all senses of the term, and make it fair. What does it mean? Make it fair, make it fit with the expectations of society. Next slide, please. So with that as broad principles, the vision talks a lot about livestock. You find it in various chapters, in particular in the chapter on competitiveness and resilience, but also in the one on future-proofing. And you have there the basis on which the Commission has launched a livestock workstream. Next slide, please. That livestock workstream is a series of meetings where you have both member states authorities and stakeholders of the livestock supply chain, including NGOs, animal welfare NGOs, but also environment NGOs, etc. They are meeting together to make sure that we have a very direct, transparent discussion on all topics. And we are doing it not only with policies that are relevant for DG Agri. DG Agri is chairing those meetings, but also with all other DGs whose policies have an impact on livestock. Next slide, please. We have for that joint group a series of meeting dates. We held already 3 meetings, one in May, one in October, one last week. And we have 4 meetings penciled for the coming year, February, April, June, September. We are having a holistic look at livestock in that process. You have there on the slide some of them highlighted, but it shows the diversity of topics that we are discussing in that workstream. Next slide, please. And one of the key drivers that we have identified so far during that process is the role indeed of research and development for giving a future to livestock farming in Europe. And part of that research and innovation is about animal breeding and genetics. And what has emerged from our discussions is various aspects of research and development that can be addressed via animal breeding and genetics. So we can find solutions, approaches for gaining environmental benefits. We can enhance resilience and competitiveness, and speakers this morning have given examples in that sense. And this innovation driver is also very fitting for attracting a new generation of farmers. So there are a lot of benefits that can be derived from this focus on animal breeding and genetics. And how do we try to help? Because we try to help in this respect from the European Commission side. You know that we have a very broad research and innovation agenda. We started in previous years, of course, and we continue now. And there is also a big ambition in the next multi-annual financial framework. If we look at the amounts that have been dedicated to research and development for livestock so far, so until this year's work program, we realized that some 680 million euros have been devoted to livestock for breeding, for resilience and efficiency, for feeding strategies as well, for the sustainable use of resources, but also for animal health and welfare. And I'm just sharing with you one of the examples, but really the portfolio is very, very wide. It's a project called Feed a Gene. So that's one that is dedicated to monogastric animals, this project made progress on new feed resources, for instance, protein-rich feed from clover, lucerne, soybean and rapeseed, but also on animal breeding with traits and models for digestive efficiency and robustness, and on novel precision feeding systems to improve efficiency and competitiveness. There are two precision feeding system prototypes for growing pigs, for instance. You have also on that presentation a link to a fact sheet that we have developed to put together all research and innovation that is being run on animal production for the moment. Next slide, please. But as said, it's really a huge program of research and innovation that we are financing from the European Commission side for sustainable livestock. So really looking at all aspects. So it's a true driver for the future of the sector. This includes breeding, but it is much larger than breeding. Next slide, please. Why do we have this particular focus? You have no doubt noticed that in the letter of intent of Commission President von der Leyen that accompanied her State of the Union speech in this institution, she has announced a livestock strategy. This is part of the Commission work program for 2026. And it will be delivered in the second quarter of next year. Next slide, please. So what we have in mind for this livestock strategy is, again, a very holistic approach to livestock, embedded in those 4 chapters opened by the Vision for Agriculture and Food. So how do we make it resilient to crisis, competitive at global level, sustainable, future-proof in all senses of the term, and fitting European diversity? We are all conscious that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So the role of the European Commission will be to create supportive conditions for the livestock sector to be able to thrive in the future, attract a new generation of farmers, and meet society's expectation. This is a very broad and ambitious strategy that aims at covering all aspects of livestock farming, the livestock value chain, animal products that are offered to the final consumer. It ranges from recalling that animal products are nutrient-dense products, but also that livestock farming is very deeply rooted in our cultural heritage and tradition. Going through all the diversity of production systems with a focus on pasture management and biodiversity conservation, but also a look at circular economy, a look at socioeconomic indicators and rural vitality, taking care of soil fertility improvement. There is also a link between livestock and that, looking at the nutrient cycle, landscape maintenance, not forgetting that livestock is also a tool for fire risk reduction, looking at what bioenergy had in stock for livestock, not forgetting tourism and recreation possibilities that livestock farming offer to society, and of course not forgetting climate targets, and looking as well at the carbon sequestration role of the sector. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Well, I think this is the time now to open the floor for questions. And Valérie, you want to ask a question, right? Go ahead.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you to all the scientists who have joined us this morning. A very interesting subject. Allow me to share my opinion with you and put a question to you. I am a breeder, a sheep breeder, and I have run a poultry farm in the past. It's very important to look at this in terms of animal welfare and making them more robust. But the tools used must be down to farmers' choice. They cannot be imposed on farmers. Farming is built on practice, diversity. That is part of our wealth. If we push all farmers towards the same genetic lines, then we will have excessive uniform stock and there will not be sufficient diversity. This could lead to degenerative illnesses. When I bred poultry, we had a specific type of chicken that grew more quickly. This was very important in terms of getting more flesh on the bone. But after a couple of weeks, we saw that there was an issue with breeding. There was a weakness in their joints. And so we were hovering very close to mistreating these animals in terms of the practices we were using. So we need to look at resilience, and that means we need more genetic options. We need to broaden the scope of breeding, and we need to leave this down to individual farmers to make their own choices. I know that genetics is a passion for various livestock farmers. I include myself in that description. There's one important point that you've mentioned, frozen semen. That's a useful option. It enables us to store stock. We can go back to previous breeding stock. That gives you more choice in livestock farming. So we need science, we need guidelines, but it's down to the farmer to take the ultimate decision. We need genetic diversity and we need food security. That's very important. And those are the points that I wanted to make on this fascinating subject.
Very much. Anyone else like to ask a question? No questions? Yeah, there's a first in the back of the room.
Can you hear me all right? My name is Maximilian Herzog. I work for Foodrise, a Dutch food justice organization, which means that we work on food systems from both like a justice but also an environmental perspective. It's the first time that I attend such a meeting here in Strasbourg, and it's really interesting. And thank you so much for all the scientific insights. We look at it, of course, from a broader environmental perspective. And if you then look at what also the strategic dialogue on agriculture, of course, mentioned was that there's a general decline of meat consumption in Europe and a trend to go more plant-based, while, of course, for us as an organization, it's also clear that animal farming, small-scale animal farming plays an important role for Europe, but also for our local communities and our rural diversity. However, the trend, of course, goes the other way. We just underwent research focusing on Denmark, where in only 14 years, the number of pig farms has declined by 60%, but the number of animals per farm has doubled, with substantial impacts on, of course, family farms that had to close down, and at the same time, huge animal factories that have substantial effects on local communities. So my question would be, if we want to preserve rural diversity and small-scale farming, how do we do this? What are maybe your key policy recommendations to really achieve this? Thank you.
Is there a specific member of panel that you would like to ask this question to? Or would you like everybody to address this? Because it's a little bit broader than the topic that we're discussing today, so I'm not sure that this is a topic for everyone in the panel. Is there somebody that likes to take the floor on this topic? Well, let me start first, and maybe then feel free to jump in. There's two things that we're seeing. I think there is in some member states a tendency to reduce the consumption of animal proteins, while other member states are increasing consumption depending on the level of development of the different member states. What we do see indeed is that family farms are disappearing in a very rapid pace in Europe, which is a very problematic trend. We have now the report on livestock that we were discussing in the intergroup here before, which focuses very much on this family-oriented farms, as family-driven farms, because this is the base of livestock production in Europe as we know it and as we want to preserve it. But I do need to put a little bit of nuance in your comment about factories, animal factories, because we don't have animal factories in Europe. We may have farms that are a bigger size than you would like to have them, but that's not a factory. I mean, if we look at the scale that we see that in Asia or in South America, for that matter, there you might use a term animal factory, especially, you know, the several story high swine farms in China could fit in your description. But we're really doing an effort in order to reshape policy so we can actually make family farms survive. The reason why they did not survive was because of the policies that were not supporting farmers in the previous mandate. So we really need to work together, make sure that we have the right policies in place and that we don't overburden our farmers with administrative regulations. Would you like to add something, Benoit? I assume you want to.
Yes, I would like to add a few remarks. That is what we are seeing. We have a European model based on sustainability. We must defend it. As things stand, what is vital, a basic principle that must be defended to enable the model to survive, is that our standards are imposed in international trade. We must import produce that meets our standards. The alternative would leave our farmers unable to compete. They cannot rely on public aid. It is growing scarcer. We need clear choices to be made in European policy. Yes, we need sustainability, but that means we need to protect our farmers. The alternative is to have free rein on the global market. We cannot leave people thinking that they can have their cake and eat it. We have to make choices, and there are consequences to those choices. That is what is driving farmers marching in Brussels today. They want to put that clear question to the Commission. We can't have a lip service to small farmers. We don't want to give too much money to farmers because there's not much left in our coffers. We need to be brave in political terms, make those choices and see them through to the end. Now, when it comes to livestock farming, let me underscore one point. If we wish to ensure sustainability, look at emissions levels, then we can either take the global view and be consistent, or we focus on the number of animals in Europe, we reduce the number of livestock. But I think that would be the wrong choice, because if we were to replace the animals, if we were to get rid of stock here because farmers can no longer make ends meet, then we will leave ourselves ever more reliant on imports from countries where sustainability criteria is much lower. So it would be counterproductive. Those that say we need to reduce livestock, to reduce greenhouse gases are getting it wrong. We need food sovereignty. We need to be self-sufficient so that we don't rely on other countries in the world with less environmentally friendly practices. We've seen that from the FAO. They have statistics that show CO2 emissions are 3 times lower from livestock farming in Europe than elsewhere. Now, this morning we talked about animal welfare, animal health, animal welfare, the environmental and economic factors. All those various issues must be weighed up. Farming is complex. We cannot regulate with simplistic solutions such as those being advocated by some. I think we need to be gutsy in our political approach and weigh up all factors. And I also have a question, if I may. Oh, I do apologise. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Sorry, Mr. Cassart, but I'm sure we'll So Alex Doring, representing European feed manufacturers. So, of course, my question goes to our researchers now on the panel, because you already referred to the link between feed efficiency and breeding programs. On the cattle breeding side, we were a bit surprised to hear from the German cattle breeders only a year ago that they only started now to focus more on feed conversion rate in cattle farming. Maybe you can take us a bit further to see, okay, where do you see improving the dialogue or interface between animal nutrition science and animal breeding on the cattle side to indeed move further or maybe even accelerate feed conversion rate. Just as an example, maybe also a question to Professor Fontanesi is, we saw the increase, of course, it's not new, the 1% per year increase in feed conversion rate, improvement in feed conversion rate. We hear from the broiler sector that we will reach a limit, physiological limit at some point, 2040, 1:1. Today we are at 1.3 feed conversion for broilers, but there will be a physiological limit. Now, if you go forward to the 2040 climate goals, zero net livestock farming. It's an objective for all the sectors, and so that's only 15 years from now. Breeding takes time, we know, and so maybe you can help us further where you see the focal points where you think we can, let's say, accelerate or amplify by converging the researchers on precision animal feeding, nutrigenomics, or relevant scientific developments to indeed, what we always discuss, to indeed allow us together, breeding, feeding, and of course animal health, to accelerate the transition towards more productive, profitable, but at the same time climate neutral livestock farming methods. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see that Dr. Fontanesi has raised his hand. So, Dr. Fontanesi, would you like to reply to this comment first?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Just a comment on the first question, then I come later to the latest question. Animal breeding is shifting the objective. Actually, so we are focusing on balancing breeding. So it's the new concept, a completely new concept. That means we are not just focusing on growth rate only, or maybe muscle mass or whatever, but is a portfolio of many different traits. So selection is based on many traits, and we need to find the right balance, the right sustainable balance that fits all our challenges, including social challenges, social expectation, animal welfare, and so on. So this is the main objective. And we see some limits, physiological limits, but if you put all together, of course, the limit is not really a physiology of the animals, but the limit is how we put all together and how we consider all different traits all together to find a sustainable, efficient way to raise animals.
Well, thank you very much. Anyone else from the panel that likes to, yeah?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the question. So I think you referred to that we just introduced feed efficiency breeding values just recently in the cattle populations, which is right. Nevertheless, you have seen that we had a big increase in productivity in the past years, but also, as Luca was referring to, a good balance between the functional traits already. So, but now we were able to introduce feed efficiency into the breeding values because first we needed to get all the phenotypic information on this, and we already, in Germany, for example, included also the body weight change, which is quite a relevant value, and was just able to perform it now because now we have enough data, enough genotyped animals that we are able to run breeding evaluation on this. Nevertheless, when you see that we have now the opportunities to select for, you see also the genetic trend, which you can calculate for the past generations. And there you see we already were going to really efficient animals, which has been done in poultry and pigs already. And we see this also in cattle. Nevertheless, you know, ruminant nutrition is not a direct feeding, but an indirect via the rumen. So, which makes it more challenging, and therefore you're fully right. We also need to see in the nutrigenomics and the microbiome of the rumen if there's also some strategies to improve them. And since this is not an easy subject, and therefore also groundbreaking research is also necessary, not only the applied ones which will follow, but it makes it more complex, and therefore it needs more time, especially in cattle generations. We breed a little bit slower than in other species. Nevertheless, we will see this trend evolving, and I guess in 10 years, in the next cattle generation, we will have a good improvement.
Just to add one thing, when I presented the breeding objectives, and one thing that I said, if a trait is not included in the breeding objective, you are not going to do selection. You're not going to do fast selection. That's important because when we started to include traits, we have seen already that if farmers have been using breeding objectives, they already have selected, using the breeding goal, they already have selected for more resilient animals. So that is important. And then when you include that trait, that will go faster, that selection. That is important. And then there is another thing. It's true that, going back to one of the questions, it's true that families are withdrawing, but then it's also what Saskia said. It's important, young generation, we have to let them an easy way to become farmer, because if it's not easy, they're not going to use it. That's important. So the young, they have to be involved in the decisions, and then to give them tools that they can use easily.
Thank you. Benoit, the last question, because we're already way over time that we had actually scheduled, and we're supposed to do some voting at noon, Benoit.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Last question for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. In another life, I'm also busy in the artificial insemination, and I just would like to know about the technical. We speak a lot about sexed semen. I think is the future, but it costs a lot because it's only one technology, and we have to pay a lot for it. And do you think that in the future we'll have more competition to have other systems to decrease the cost of the sexed semen? What's the state of the situation about this?
Yes, well, thank you for the question. It's actually what we're trying to do, and the company that I'm working for developed a technology that's now a EU-based produced technology. It's completely sourced in Europe. It was developed with EU know-how, We worked closely with the Atomic Agency in France that helped us develop all the electronic system around this technology, as an example. And that's our objective, to make this technology more accessible to farmers and of course to breeding organization, because that's a technology that is not on-farm technology. It needs to be run by the co-ops that produce the semen. But yes, that clearly that's what we're trying to achieve, to make this technology very, very valuable to the EU farmer, to be autonomous, to be autonomous in Europe to produce sex semen. So yes, the short answer, yes, and we're commercial now. So yeah, we're commercial now. So we would just the actual technology that's used, which is mostly a North American technology. I mean, the co-ops needs to make the choice to come work with us.
Yeah, a short addition to this, since I think the price is one piece, but you know the main price for farmers are the feed costs, and costs for the semen and insemination is really a tiny piece of the farm economics, and therefore we see in our farmers demand that they are not directly looking to 5 or 10 euro more, but they really look for the efficiency, and when they see that the fertilization ability is comparable to conventional frozen semen, which we are reaching now, then they really start to use it more and more. We are in France and in Germany roughly at 12% use of sex semen, but I guess when we see North America or UK, then we see definitely there's big potential on the market to use it mainly as the first product on the market, and I guess with more production facilities and the ability to have also European technologies to be more independent, we will evolve this quicker and come also to more 30-40% of use of sex semen in the bovine sector.
Very good. Then, first of all, I would like to thank our speakers. Thank you very much for sharing these insights with us. Thank you also, Dr. Fontanesi, who is online. Thank you for your contribution. Brigitte, yes, very good. Yes, that was thinking. There's somebody else online. Ms. Mison, thank you for being with us, taking the time to join us. Almost forgot to thank you, but of course, very important to have the insight of the Commission as well. And with that, I would like to close this meeting. Thank you. Thank you all.